Welcome. You have reached review time with Imperial. Today's video is Godzilla vs. Kong. Let's get into it. Now, we've been anticipating this movie since we first heard of it at the end of Kong Skull Island when you seen the picture on the wall of where it was Godzilla and Kong fighting from back in the day. Then we seen King of Monsters still was waiting. And then here we brings us to Godzilla vs. Kong. And just get this cast out the way. Millie Bobby Brown plays as Madison Russell. Alexander Skarsgård plays as Dr. Nathan Blinn. Julian Dennison plays as Josh. Irene Andrews, she's played by Rebecca Hall. Mark Russell, father of Madison Russell, played by Kyle Chandler. Walter Simmons is played by Demian Bichir. And then you have Brian Tyree Henry, he plays as Bernie Hayes. That's pretty much the main characters of the story. It's other people that sprinkled in, but you know, they said Denara Guerrero was in there. I might gotta watch that again. I don't remember her in there. But nevertheless, uh, let's get into the movie. So the movie starts off with Kong sleep. He wakes up, and when he wakes up, shows him he was asleep. He in his habitat, and he jumps in a waterfall. And then what he does is he takes a tree branch, a tree, and takes it and rips it off, and he launches it in the air. And you see it hits a dome. So what they did was, remember in Skull Island, if you remember seeing Skull Island, you can fly into Skull Island and it becomes something different if you make it into there. So what they did was they created a dome all around Skull Island so nothing can get into it and nothing can get out. And Kong knows that. And so what Kong has, he has become attached to a little girl. And you really don't know, it doesn't really say how he became attached to the little girl. It doesn't really say that. So it just jumps right into it, and he's attached to the little girl. Nevertheless, while you see that scene, you see the scene where Godzilla is over in another area and is destroying a lot of different things. So there's a doctor who he wants to come up with a weapon that he's found. He made aware Walter Simmons. He runs the Apex organization. Now the last guy from the King of Monsters, I thought he was gonna be playing that, but he wasn't. They got a whole new guy. So nevertheless, this guy Walter Simmons, he wants to go find Dr. Nathan Lynn. Now he's over in Philadelphia. Life, he wrote a book. Nobody's tuned into the book. He was the guy that from Kong Island that was the main guy that was with on helping everybody navigate through Kong Island or whatever. So in this one, come find him pretty much. He said he's no longer part of Monarch. They didn't bring back the girl from King Kong Island. They went and found him, told him pretty much. They showed him a hologram of that underneath the world. There's these for lack of better words, wormholes underneath the world that leads you to other places and other worlds. And it's wormholes, and he's built something that can survive it, like a little spaceship that can survive in that area. However, he needs one of the Titans to be able to go down there and take him and show him there's some type of source that he wants to get that used as a weapon, that if they have that weapon, they can beat the other Titans and stuff like that, and they'll be prepared. So the doctor pretty much like, okay, this is my shot at it to get back in the game, so I'm with it. So what they plan to do is take Kong to the area and let Kong navigate them and see if it's something he's familiar with, and take them to this power source. And so on a course there, they're looking at Godzilla just destroyed this area, and why did he attack this area? And so they're saying it's something up with Godzilla. And so of course Millie Brown's character Madison, she's pretty much like, she's Team Godzilla, so she's pretty much like, hey, it's something that must have triggered him to act this way. He's supposed to be the protector. So CNN News and all these news are saying Godzilla's the enemy now. So on their way with Kong, they sedated Kong, and he's in chains and everything. So the little girl comes out to speak to him, and he's upset. So they get to see that the little girl can communicate with Kong through sign language, and the little girl is she communicates through sign language as well. And so she was saying, well, he's upset because he wants to go home. And then the mom was like, what do you mean? How you know that? And he said, he told me. And she couldn't think of how she knew. And then they seen him sign language, and then he started doing sign language to the woman, and they was all amazed that he understood sign language and everything like that. And so nevertheless, Kong is in chains. They got the things around him that sedates him. And so all of a sudden you hear this alarm. Godzilla could sense his presence. He could sense Godzilla's presence. And so Godzilla is on a war path, and they got all these ships and trying to shoot Godzilla. He's knocking them out. So this is on the trailers when you see the big water scene. Now, you already can see in a water setting, you know Godzilla has the total advantage because he swims underwater. That's his habitat. All he got to do is find a way to get Kong into the water and drown him or whatever. So pretty much you know that's going to be his strategy. So he's and Kong is in chains, and then the woman's telling the doctor, hey man, you need to release him. And so let me stop saying the woman. Eileen pretty much tells him, the doctor, Nathan, you need to release him. And he like, nah. He like, you have to, because he like a sitting duck or whatever. He's gonna be at a disadvantage, and he needs to protect himself and protect us. So nevertheless, Godzilla came and knocked the big submarine ship over, and he had to swim to go unlock the chains off of Kong. So it released Kong. Now he could fight. And so he pushed himself off. Godzilla was punching, but then he was fighting Godzilla. Him and Godzilla was warring. And then they was battling, and pretty much Godzilla's strategy was to get him in the water. So it was a moment where he got him in the water, and he started drowning Kong. And so what they did was they sent these like missiles underneath the water that set off an explosion underneath the water, which would distract Godzilla, which allowed him to release Kong. And what it did was, when it released Kong, Kong floated back up to the top and gasped for air. And then he laid on the ship that he was being embarked on, and he was exhausted, of course. Now Godzilla was on his way back to fight, but they told them, the doctor told them to turn off all the engines, all the lights, because what that would do is it'd make Godzilla think that they're dead, or, you know, basically they waving a white flag or whatever, and he'd go away. And so that's what happened, and he did. So their thought was to get to the place is we're going to have to fly him out now. So they flew Kong out to this wormhole place. Meanwhile, you had Madison and her crew trying to figure out what Apex is up to. Apex is got something being shipped to Hong Kong. They end up hitching a ride to Hong Kong, investigating. So you have a guy that was a conspiracy theorist. He had his own blog online, and he pretty much was saying there's something wrong up with this company, and this is Bernie Hayes, and Bernie was had a blog online and pretty much was saying something is up with Apex. So he befriended people in Apex to find out what's going on. And so when he linked up with Madison and her friend, their mission was to find out, break into Apex and find out what's going on. So they hitched a hot ride to Hong Kong, and they get to find out what's actually going on when they get to Hong Kong. When they get to Hong Kong, they see that the Godzilla that they seen destroying, that wasn't a Godzilla. That was a Mega Godzilla that was a robot. And Apex created it. And what it was doing is when Godzilla killed when the King of Monsters in that last movie, when he chopped off one of their heads, when that guy from Apex found a head, they kept that head and used that head to function the Mega Godzilla. So they've been using that Mega Godzilla, and it's just like the movie Pacific Rims, where somebody controlling the Godzilla, those robots in Pacific Rim. So there's got somebody controlling the Mega Godzilla. So you find out that. Meanwhile, they take Kong to this Alaska area, cold with all these wormholes, and then the little girl pretty much sign language to him and saying basically, hey, I need you to go down. Your home could be down in one of them wormholes, and he's pretty much like, nah. And then he see where he at. It's snow. This ain't his habitat. So she told him your family could be down there. And so when he heard that, he took off into the wormhole. And meanwhile, they got into their little spaceship thing that could survive going through the wormholes, and watched him go down. And then he ended up going through all these wormholes, and he ended up in a habitat of an island. And he started heading straight to a place where it seemed like he was familiar. And of course, where you see in a trailer where he's swinging and hit like one of them big monsters or whatever, you see that. And so that's where he fighting one of them monsters, and he helps and defend the people in a little spaceship, and it doesn't stop it. He's still on a mission. He's headed somewhere. So when he finally gets to the mountains, you see it's like a door, and it has his hand print. So he puts his hand print there, and when he see it's like a dome, and you could tell it's someplace that he's familiar with or his ancestors was. And they got this axe, that axe that you see him with in the trailer. That's where he finds that axe at, and it's glowing. And so it shows him sit down with the axe, and like he's in his throne, like the king, you know. Meanwhile, they're in a spaceship, and the daughter of Walter Simmons, Maya Simmons, she's with them, and she's pretty much, you get to find out that Walter Simmons, he's not on the up and up. He's really snaking, and he's trying to do something dirty. He wants the power source for himself. So Kong sees the reflection of the axe. It's reflecting some type of power source. So he finds the power source, and Maya at that moment, she sends a signal back to her dad. And what this does is sends a signal so that they can absorb the power source. And what it did was start to collapse the Kong's kingdom. And so what they did was hurry up, get back in the ship, and flew back to through the wormhole, and Kong went too. Now, when he appeared back in Hong Kong, and him and Godzilla began to fight again. So this time, when you see on the trailer where it shows Kong jump in the air and Godzilla shooting up, that is the actual fight scene between these two. Now, they're fighting again, and this is where I have a problem with the movie. Is I understood Kong would lose a battle in the water. That's Godzilla's habitat. But they had Kong lose a second battle on ground. with Godzilla, and he fought valiantly, but Godzilla still bested him on the ground. And they made Godzilla have baby Tyrannosaurus arms, man, and Kong could be able to jump from here to that. Man, it just didn't make sense, man. So they had to. I don't know who they were trying to appease by allowing Godzilla beat Kong a second time. So he beat him a second time, and he crushed his chest, and he stood over top of Godzilla. I mean, he stood over top of Godzilla, stood over top of King Kong, and he bested him again, and pretty much uh, Godzilla kind of like walked off. And at this moment, the robot Mega Godzilla, the dude that was controlling him, the robot Godzilla took over and killed the dude that was controlling him, and now the robot is controlling itself. And so it started shooting its way out, and what it did was Godzilla was still in the area, and so Godzilla instantly started running towards him. Now the robot Godzilla started beating the hell out of Godzilla. So Mega Godzilla was beating the hell out of Godzilla, about to kill him. And so the little girl started crying, and she ran over where Kong was, and she put her hand on the ground, and she could see Godzilla's heart slowing, and his heart started slowing, and she said he's dying. And so they had that little spaceship thing that could give absorb like a electric shock. So they put that on Kong's chest, and then the doctor hurry up and ran off, and it gave Kong a shock, and it zooted him up, and now he came back, and he was up. And so the little girl was pretty much sign language telling him that Godzilla wasn't the enemy, the robot Godzilla was, and he needs to help Godzilla. And Kong pretty much was like, yeah, right. And then she started to say, you have to, or whatever. So when his battle with Godzilla, he dislocated his shoulder. And so when he dislocated his shoulder, he rammed his shoulder into the building, snapped his shoulder back together. And so he went, and then when the robot Godzilla was about to fry regular Godzilla, Kong came out of nowhere and jumped on him and stopped him from frying Godzilla. And they both started fighting them together and taking turns. The robot Godzilla was getting the best of both of them. And so Madison and her crew was in Apex with the controls of the robot, and they couldn't figure out, they wanted to shut down, the system. And so they couldn't find no password to shut it down. So they threw alcohol on the whole system, and it malfunctioned, and it stopped the robot for a moment. And at that moment, when it stopped, it gave them just enough time to get their stuff together. Kong started axing the robot Godzilla away. Regular Godzilla was leaning on the ground. He was wounded, and he shot his fire at the robot Godzilla. And so at that time, Kong just took him apart, chopped them all to pieces with his axe, and then stood over top of him, broke the head, and then put his head in the air like But it was like that was their moment to say, okay, we're gonna give Kong a win after Godzilla bust his behind. that. If I had to, that was the biggest negative, man. They should let it be 1-1 at least or whatever. But after that, they killed the robot Godzilla. Kong was tired and leaned against the building, and so Godzilla made a loud noise, and Kong got back up like, all right, here we go again. And he grabbed the axe like, all right, we gotta get it on again. And Godzilla started to come towards him, and then Kong dropped the axe basically as a sign of basically what, I don't want no more war. as a peace treaty, and Godzilla turned and jumped back in the water and went off. And that was pretty much the end of the movie. So out of my 4-star rating, since I'm gonna give this movie a 3 out of 4 stars, it was a good movie. The theatrics was great. Um, my only knock was that I didn't. They let Kong get his behind busted twice or whatever. They tried to redeem him in the end, but that was, you know, that that was weak. So if you want to know who won between Godzilla versus Kong, Godzilla won. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment if you've seen it. Until next time.